Shooters, welcome in to another episode of the Shooters Touch podcast. Special day, big day today. It's kind of the official start of basketball in that we have real live games. Now, the nice thing is we just came off of what was a thrilling WNBA season and a WNBA championship in which the New York Liberty crowned themselves champions just in time to move right into the NBA, which is a heavy thing of what we're going to be talking about today because the season kicks off today. We have two games tonight featuring the Knicks and the Celtics, which should be an interesting matchup all year in the East between those two teams. And then the Wolves and the Lakers. T-Wolves will be one that, hits close to home here with us Iowans, but also a team to watch. Obviously, a run that they went on last year, excitement that they have around Edwards, and some of the off-season moves will be interesting. And we'll dive into the T-Wolves a little bit more here as we kind of dive into some predictions and what we're excited about the NBA this coming year. One other little kind of housekeeping note. The IBCA clinic was this past Saturday. We heard some really great things. It sounded like the practices went really well. I heard both Drake women's and then the UNI men. People are always excited to be able to see those programs at that level and practice and see what's different and what's not from a coaching standpoint, from an athlete standpoint, from a drill standpoint. They're definitely attention to details, but there's a lot of things that I know a lot of you high school coaches out there are doing every day in your practice as well. And so hopefully you got an opportunity to see that. I didn't hear a whole lot from the speakers at night. There was some good ones in Ben McCollum and Nate Schmidt from Iowa State that was there as well. And so I'll be anxious to kind of continue to hear from coaches and things and stuff went in. Adam, unfortunately, our schedules didn't allow us to show up and hang out with old Raz and Betts for a little bit and take in a few of the speakers, but definitely looked like a good lineup and something that I'll be anxious to hear more about.
Definitely. And as you said, you heard from a couple coaches, I did too, that it was obviously every year something that those coaches look forward to. And I think the practices and like you said, the speaker lineup was top notch this year, with the Drake women and the UNI men, some really experienced coaches there. Having some good teams too. So yeah, as you mentioned, our schedules were not very conducive to being able to be there. Because apparently some people think it's soccer season and not basketball
Yeah.
season. But yeah, always a good clinic, always a lot of great information that those guys that the IBCA, really does a good job of setting that up. And wish I could have been there, but as you mentioned, just couldn't do it.
Yep, schedules. That's fall's busy time of the year. But with that too, basketball is right around the corner. It starts today, NBA. So let's start with the Iowans and taking a look at some of where our own are at. Not a ton of changing this offseason, at least for the Iowa guys. Pretty true. I guess Harrison Barnes did make a change. He went from the Kings to the Spurs. Is there a more San Antonio Spur player than Harrison Barnes?
I mean, not much. They yeah, obviously have a really experienced coach, have somebody who is who understands that mentorship, I think, that a Harrison Barnes can bring, that honestly, Doug McDermott as well, is on it is in San Antonio. So those guys kind of meeting up again, is kind of a cool deal. And hopefully, especially with Doug McDermott being a shooter, Wemby inside, got a double, sometimes triple team that guy. So
And Chris
spot up and
Paul,
shoot it.
obviously, another pickup that they had too. I
You
mean,
know,
veteran leadership around Wemby, I assume, was the goal here. But you have that, and obviously the two Iowans and McDermott and Barnes, and then you add CP on the outside. It should be interesting whether or not it all comes together. If maybe some of those guys are maybe a few ticks past where they need to be to compete, will be interesting to see. But I think long term, those three specifically for the growth of Wemby, obviously with Pop still there, is going to be huge. And so that's probably like one of the biggest changes. The other one is DJ Carton. So a kid that I feel like with him being over on the east side of the state playing high school, we never got to see him as much as we would have liked. And then his college career got kind of wonky there for a little bit. But then having him in town and playing with the Wolves for a while in the G League was something that was fun to be able to see and watch that. And now on a two-way with the Raptors. And so see kind of how that all shakes out. It sounds like maybe early feelings were that might get some run with the club. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah, I agree. And you mentioned it with him playing for the Wolves here for the last couple of years. Just an explosive player. Really fun to watch. Crowd pleaser, can hammer down a dunk, but can also make the outside shot. And I think the Raptors, I think there's potential for him. They're a little bit slim at the point guard spot. Even the two guard, maybe I think he could be a two guard as well. I think he's strong enough, maybe lacks a little bit in the height category, but yeah, good opportunity for him and a good opportunity, on a two-way deal to be honest, play a lot of basketball, to play a lot of good basketball. So yeah, excited to see him and excited to see the growth that he's had and that he will have here in the future too.
Yeah, that'll be a big time to be able to get an opportunity. Something where we see, Luka Garza, one that we claim as an Iowan as well as a guy that took advantage of a two-way opportunity, put up big numbers, had an opportunity to go up with the big club, to be productive. And so hopefully the same thing can kind of happen to DJ where he can start to find some opportunities. Like you said, that squad is something where it could be a really great fit for him. Speaking of fit, let's talk about AJ Green a little bit. Obviously, the Bucks, it's something that we've seen. His shooting has played big roles and big minutes for that team. Still would like to see him get maybe a little more opportunities and a little more minutes to be able to be productive. Obviously, a big part of that is, for him to be able to continue to defend on the other end and then pick his spots offensively. And so, heard anything or what's the excitement around AJ this year with the Bucks?
Yeah, I think I mentioned it, I believe, a couple times last year, but I thought that if they got rid of Grayson Allen, that he would get a little more playing time, and they got rid of him. He signed a deal with the Bucks, um, and I do think, honestly, just that he is one of the best shooters in the NBA. He makes open shots, makes every open shot it seems like he takes, and at the end of last year, playing time may have gone down towards the playoff run in the playoffs. However, when he was playing towards the end of last year, I feel like he was creating shots a little bit more, and really understanding the NBA game. That's such a big part of being a good NBA player is understanding how to play in the NBA, right? You see these guys getting drafted top 10, sometimes never touch the NBA court. Number one, because the NBA drafts a lot on potential, but number two, it's hard to understand that game sometimes. It's just different. It's slower paced. There's more intricate, more complex actions on the offensive end and defense, to be honest. But yeah, I think toward the end of last year, I think he started to create a shot a little bit better, a little bit easier. And I think that's something that will help him moving forward, obviously. So hopefully that playing time goes up for AJ because, like I said, I think he is just an assassin out there. With the ball in his hand, and that team. We mentioned Wemby, but you got Giannis down low. And you have obviously Dame Lillard out there too, who has the ball in their hand a lot. So hate to say it's easy to spot up and shoot, but just spot up and shoot.
Right. Yeah, and that was a team too that last year with that addition of Dame felt like they were trying to figure it out all season. Just kind of like in and out of lineups, had some injuries issues and stuff too. And so I don't know. We're used to seeing the Bucks obviously being contenders, and then last year maybe not quite as much, and then injuries late. And so it'd be nice to see those guys kind of catch a groove, and AJ included, and have some opportunities here as we go down the stretch. Moving out west, we have the Murray twins, obviously Keegan and Chris. Keegan establishing himself as this potential star that he is. I know he signed a contract with Adidas this offseason, I believe. And really just kind of finding his groove, talking about being able to shoot and knock down open shots, being able to defend, being able to get out in transition. Keegan has made that adjustment well to the NBA on a fun and good Kings team, which has been fun to watch. And then, Chris up in Portland too. It's kind of the same thing with AJ, just figuring out where and how he fits in. I think that organization, same thing, trying to kind of figure out where and how. That's the other thing when you kind of get in the NBA, there's always feels like there's these other alternatives and trying to figure out like where we're at to try to position ourselves, because really usually you have a 3-4 year window. And in which you're going for stuff, and the rest of the time it's loading up to be ready or prepared for that 3 or 4 year window. And so we watch the games and we see what's going on, but we don't ever actually know what's going on. Honestly, it's part of some of the excitement too, and not really knowing. But it'll be interesting to see one, how Chris makes that step, and then Keegan too, as he continues to rise up and be a player. You know, obviously the Kings re-signed Malik Monk out there was a big thing for them, and a few changes, obviously, as we mentioned here with moving Harrison over there too. It'll be interesting to see what that Kings team looks like.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, super athletic team. Anytime you have a guy like Malik Monk coming off the bench for you, you know you're at least somewhat at least have a somewhat deep roster. And you talk about Chris out there too. You know, I think that that's one of the things in this NBA season I'm most maybe excited is the wrong word, but I'm looking forward to watching is how the Trailblazers progress. Right, got Scoot Henderson in his second year, number 2 pick. Probably had a little bit of a off year last year, when you're thinking about a number 2 pick in the draft. They got DeAndre Ayton. Anthony Simons was injured for most of last year, and he's a really good player. So, I think they could potentially make a little noise. I don't see them making the playoffs, to be honest, but I think if they're younger players that they have, take the steps that they need to this year, I think they could be a pretty average team, maybe even above average this season.
I forgot to just went back and looked at the Kings also picked up DeMar DeRozan this offseason.
Yes.
That's gonna be big too for those guys, which again adjusting to his game and his style too will be something that Keegan will have to figure out. Just because he is gonna take a big load from the scoring side of things, and so just figuring other ways to impact the game. But the Kings will be fun. Like I said, the Trailblazers will definitely be interesting to see what they're able to do. Um, Otherwise, the only other one, so we do have Joe Wieskamp on the list. I believe he's over playing overseas in Australia, is where he's
Mhm.
at. I think they're up and running, actually, if I saw that right. So he's another Iowa native that we still have out playing professionally. We talked about Garza, we kind of claim him. Monte Morris is another one that we kind of claim, and he got moved to the Suns. The Suns always fun in that we don't ever really know what's going on, but usually exciting style of basketball, and so that'll be interesting to see how that works. And then George Niang coming back with the Clippers, or sorry, with the Cavs, so he's staying in Cleveland as well. I think that's the list that I have. Have we missed anybody else that you can think of on there?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, we got all the ones that we usually claim, I believe, or at least the bigger names. And yeah, excited to see those guys too. It's always kind of cool to I mean see somebody you watch so much in college that's just up the road from us with Monte and Georges, and it's more of a um, like you said, we kind of claim them. However, it's cool to see those guys continue their career and to play such big parts on pretty good teams. The Cavs and the Suns. Obviously, like you said, the Suns at the very least they have some really big names on that team. They haven't got that chemistry thing down yet, and or having all those big names on the floor at the same time. But dangerous team with a lot of good scorers, a lot of good basketball players on there too.
Yeah, it's always fun to watch. Monte's, found himself in some big situations on some deep run playoff teams too. And so the guy, he knows what he's doing. He knows to win. He knows how to impact the game. And so at this stage of his career, I'm sure that's all he's looking for, and be able to
Mhm.
provide some leadership and some guidance as well. So let's look at some predictions here as we go through. So I was kind of pulling up, taking a look. The Celtics are the favorites, are the betting favorites to repeat as champions with maybe a little bit more exciting, but they have the Thunder in the number 2 spot, which, the addition of Alex Caruso and moving off of Giddy down there. I mean, that's a young team. It's a talented team. They showed some really great flashes last year, so I'll be excited to see. Um, ESPN, it looks like they have them at a plus 675 to be the champions this year. What are your thoughts on kind of those first two? And do you think those are slotted right, or is there anybody else that you might move up?
Yeah, I mean, I just think the West is will be so competitive. You know, you have obviously Oklahoma City; they have a really good team. It'll be interesting to see if that Giddy trade was the right thing to do. I really liked his game. Obviously, Alex Caruso is kind of more of a hard nosed type of a guy. Doesn't have to score. He does whatever it takes, or excuse me, whatever he needs to do to win. Um, but then you got the Wolves up north too in Minneapolis. That I mean, I've seen several articles that have them as the favorite to win. Um, Obviously, exciting stuff up there with Anthony Edwards and that team. But then you got the Mavericks last year made the finals, beat the Thunder. Um, and really, didn't really put up the biggest fight, with the Celtics in the finals, but they added Clay. See what that does for you, and having that experience in the finals, typically I would say progresses you wanting to get back there. So you think about that and, working harder over the summer, making sure you're ready for the season so you can get back there. So I think the West is going to be super fun. And everybody kind of forgets about the Nuggets out there too. They still got the man out there. They got Jamal Murray. Michael Porter Jr. I think is a really good basketball player. So I think the West is going to be like that. I think the Bucks will have something to say about Celtics getting back there in the East. Um, but then the East is one of those deals kind of where I don't know, it could go anyway. You got the Knicks too. 76ers are supposed to be a little better, hopefully, if Joel Embiid can stay healthy. But yeah, there are some really cool storylines with some really good teams in both conferences. But yeah, I mean, if I would have to say, I'd say those two positions are slotted correctly. With maybe what I would say is maybe the Wolves in front of the Thunder in the West there.
Yeah, so they also looking at here again at ESPN, the plus 1,000 for the Mavericks, the Nuggets, and the Wolves are all kind of slotted together. And so they're, based off these numbers, have Celtics, Thunder coming out of each side, and then Knicks, Sixers. So Knicks are at plus 700, and the Sixers are at plus 825. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens. Yeah, I mean, with the Mavericks, and looking to see as far as some of their off-season moves. You mentioned bringing in Klay Thompson was a big one. They got Spencer Dinwiddie too, and Quentin Grimes as well. I always kind of liked Quentin's game, to be honest with
Yeah,
you. But they've the loss of Derrick Jones Jr., I think, is kind of a big one. Tim Hardaway did some nice things for them. He struggled, obviously, considerably last year, coming back from the injury and kind of figuring out where he's at. I mean, his shooting and length was always nice to have, but when he was not shooting the ball well, he was not doing a whole lot. And so that was kind of tough too. So I don't know. Hopefully, I think they're maybe hoping that Clay kind of fills that void. Derrick Jones is his ability. He moved out to the Clippers. That one will be interesting to see how they are able to replace him. Um, and then the Timberwolves, with the move of moving Karl Anthony Towns needed to happen, in my opinion. That was something
yeah,
that, I mean, in today's NBA, I mean, we're not playing two bigs. And so it was either him or Gobert. And
yeah,
I think there was obviously way more trade value in Cat. Don't love Julius Randle. He is one of those guys that never been a big fan of his game. I mean, it's something where once he gets it, nobody else is getting it. And
yeah,
so I don't know how that'll work other than just from an efficiency standpoint with that second group, being able to go in and we can just force feed him the ball for the whole second quarter, and give some of those guys a break. I could see that working out well. That essentially becomes his role and he's going in and just get buckets. It kind of makes things a little bit harder for Garza because that was kind of the role that Garza played. I'll go
yeah,
get you 12 minutes, get you 12 points, and so um, we'll see kind of how that all fits together and what that looks like with that second team. DiVincenzo is just a killer, and so getting him
yeah.
up in
I like
Minnesota
him a
too, I
lot.
think I think that'll help. I think that's a nice addition for them as well. They need another dog in that room to go with those guys, and so I think he can kind of do that. Obviously, Conley is going to be just the savvy veteran, smartest dude in the room, and so that would be nice to have along with obviously the superstar that is Ant. And so Timberwolves will be Timberwolves are exciting. I definitely think, like I said, they're the closest one to us here in Iowa, so we tend to claim them, and so that's something that'll be fun to watch if they continue to do it. The Knicks were going to be really interesting with all those Villanova guys until they traded, obviously, DiVincenzo, as we talked about, because they picked up Mikal Bridges this offseason as well, which I thought was a nice pickup.
Yeah.
Brunson, Hart, those guys still doing their thing out there. Got to stay healthy. That's a much a Tibbs thing as it is anybody else, I feel like. He is
Yeah.
old school in the way that he goes about things, which there's a lot of really good stuff about that, but there's also a pounding in which that those guys are taking. And, Hart playing 40 minutes every night, like, I mean, there's got to be a better way to be able to make this deep run. And so, but the Knicks, when basketball is better when the Knicks are good. So
Hmm.
let's keep the Knicks good. Let's keep them rolling. The 76ers, I mean, I could do without Joel Embiid. Like, I could never watch that guy play basketball again and be completely fine. I just can't stand the guy. So we'll see. We'll see what that shakes out. Paul George, on the flip side, while Paul's maybe never quite lived up potential, I do like watching him play because he's
Yeah.
nasty. Um, and then obviously with Maxi too. Maxi's fun to watch, and his
Maxi's
game's
fun.
exciting too. And so I don't know. So it'll be fun. It'll be something. Surely Joel will get hurt at some point, and so then the Sixers will be really fun to watch.
Yeah.
Uh, just keep an eye on what they do. So going down the board a little bit, you get past the Wolves, and then it feels like you got the Bucks at 1,300, Suns at 2,000, Lakers 33, Grizzlies. So Grizzlies will be interesting to see what happens with Ja coming back.
Hmm.
Seeing, if they're able to put anything together, what might happen there. And then the Cavs are below them at plus 4,000, which I don't know. I mean, there were times where the Cavs would look pretty good, last year in that playoff run and did some nice things. And then there were times where they look like a fish out of water. And so I don't know. We'll see what the Cavs are able to do in that adjustment, trying to figure out that two-headed monster at point guard, and what and how that works when Spida is just so ball dominant. It
Yeah.
makes it that hard sometimes, but he can also give you a 60 at any moment. And so
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, going down this board, if we went down the board, like, is there any
Hmm.
of these teams where you're like, maybe we can get an upset in the first round? Like, what do you
I
think?
would say if there's one that I'm thinking of right now, it'd be Orlando.
Yeah,
In the East, we've talked about the top dogs in the East, but they have a young group. I think Jalen Suggs has uh at least come into his own at the end of last season. I love to watch Paulo Banchero, who he is just I think I said this about him coming out of college. He has probably the first guy to come out in a long time that had like a LeBron body coming out of college into the NBA as a 19-year-old, which is just wild to me. But I like them. I like that, or I like them to maybe even get an upset in the playoffs. Um, and, we haven't talked about the Pacers, which is one thing that I think that we may have missed in the previous section, with Iowans that we kind of claim and Halliburton.
yeah,
We would have a couple upset listeners if we didn't mention him and his new deal with Puma, uh, which that can be a whole nother episode that we talk about that. But yeah, I think Pacers, obviously they made a run last year. They were a good team last year, so maybe that wouldn't be like an upset. But if I'm picking one team that could potentially make an upset in the playoffs, it's gonna be the Magic, just because they got such a good young core there. I think with the Wagner twins too, or sorry, Wagner brothers. I think that's a team that we watch all year, and hopefully our guy Brent Bloom would be excited to hear that. Magic fan, probably one of the only Magic fans in Iowa out of the 19 NBA fans, as he likes to say.
right, absolutely, yeah. So they're plus 5,000 on here, which I agree. Same with the Pacers. Those are two teams that uh bring a lot back from teams that had some playoff success last year, and so those would be teams to keep an eye on. A little surprising. So then the Pelicans at plus 5,000 as well. That's a no for me on them. I don't see how that's going to work. The Heat is one where, I mean, Heat culture. vibe around what the Heat do. You just never know. Can't rule them
Yeah.
out. They're plus 4,000 with the Warriors, which surprised me a little bit coming out of the West and what they have or don't have, I guess. But
Yeah.
I guess you could put the Warriors in that same boat of like, well, you can't ever really count them out.
Yeah.
Um,
I do think with the Warriors, I think Jonathan Kuminga is going to be a monster too. I've always liked him, and now with Clay gone, he'll get that starting spot, I believe, and obviously get more playing time too. He can create a lot better than Clay can, but obviously can't shoot as well either. So, yeah, they're kind of interesting, something to watch during the season because yeah, like you said, you can kind of never count them out. But I think they could score 160 points or they could score 70 points on
right.
any given night, depending. But yeah, should be. I mean, interesting teams down there. I think there will be some teams that are out pretty quick. Um, when we're talking playoffs, the Nets complete rebuild mode. Jazz are going to be there too. Wizards, I put them in that category because they're always in that category. Um,
The
just
Wizards are
going
forever in the bottom
they're
category.
forever just I don't know if it's a
What they
curse
got
or
going
if
on.
what it is, but they're
That's
they're never up there.
they got a long
Um
ways to go.
I think the Hornets are going to be fun to watch. Brandon Miller in year number 2 is going to be something that I think will be a he's going to take a big step this year. I think he played really well last year and having I think LaMelo is finally healthy. Um, from what I've seen in the preseason, he's been playing well, and anybody that can be a distributor and take people away from Brandon Miller, a scorer, will make those two a deadly duo. I think too.
So two teams that we have not talked about that are usually talked about at least. So Iowans, I know we have a lot of Bulls fans still too, and we get to
Mhm.
watch quite a few of the Bulls games. Quite a few connections there. So the Bulls still feel a little bit like a dumpster fire, so I'm not quite
Mhm.
sure what that's going to look like this year. Obviously moved to Rosen, which I would have rather have seen Levine move in that situation as a sort of kind of I'll watch enough Bulls games, maybe not quite claim as a fan, but I would have rather seen Levine move, but I understand that he probably didn't have the same trade value as DeRozan did when it comes to that. But the Bulls, and then you move Caruso off of there too. Always love watching him play. And now I don't know. I don't know enough to know what's going on over in Chicago. Give me a few weeks and I'll watch a few games and then I'll have
Yeah,
plenty for you. But the Bulls are just need to figure something out because they are in that bottom chunk of
yeah,
you don't have a chance to be competitive essentially. And then the other team that we have not talked about that everyone is probably talking about and that you will be talking about all season is the Lakers.
yep,
In which, truthfully, there's a lot to be excited about. I mean, outside of obviously the whole Bronny story, which is admittedly is a super cool storyline. Like you can
yeah,
have your opinion on LeBron or whatever it is that you have, and that's totally fine. But when you stop and you think about being able to have an opportunity to play in any game, let alone a professional game with your son, it's cool. And
it's
I
awesome.
saw a report the other day where they're talking about how the Griffeys plan to be there. Obviously with Ken Griffey and Ken Griffey Sr. Being the other two notables that played together. And so that's just kind of cool. I mean, that's something that, in the NBA we just do not see. It's happened a few times in baseball, but we're not used to that in the NBA. So that's a cool story. And then you go to obviously JJ Redick. Huge fan of JJ Redick. I'm excited about him having an opportunity to be a head coach, but I'm super disappointed in that I don't have a two daily pod or weekly podcast to listen to now either. And so that's been a little bit of a bummer on that side. I guess Shooter's Touch will have to fill that void for you guys out there.
Yep.
Now that JJ's obviously in the front chair, but I'll be anxious to see kind of what that looks like for him and what he's able to do. Obviously, LeBron, AD, what does how does that look like? We know they know how to win. We know that they can make plays. Obviously, they got some fun pieces that I don't know. I'm excited about the Lakers.
Yeah, I think it's always cool to watch LeBron, in my opinion. Um, been kind of a mid-tier team the last couple of years, and but now they got a storyline with him and Bronny. I think that'll be To be honest, I think that might be pretty short lived with with him Bronny's playing time. But I mean, also they drafted a really good rookie, Dalton Connect out of Tennessee, who I think to be honest will be up there towards rookie of the year at the end of the season. Um, really good game that I think it complements that team well. Kind of compared to an Austin Reeves, probably a little more athletic than him, but just like we talked about before, if he can understand and he can process the NBA game like Austin has, he's going to be dangerous too. But yeah, those teams, I agree with you with the Bulls. Not quite sure what's going on out there. I can probable that Zach Levine's going to be asking for a trade. I would say prior to the trade deadline. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I mean it's each of those teams you mentioned have interesting storylines. The Bulls had a pretty high draft pick and drafted kind of a unknown guy. Um, and then obviously all the storylines with the Lakers are fun to watch to a certain extent, I suppose.
What so sticking with the Lakers here for a minute. Going through two things. So Dalton is I just pulled him up. So he's 6'6", 215 is what they have him listed at. Obviously he's an older too. He's a guy that,
Yep.
what, 4 or 5 years in college. And so he hasn't had a chance to grow. I mean, this is a man coming into the NBA.
Yep.
He's got the body for it, shoots the absolute piss out of it. And so it'll be interesting to see, what he's able to do with that frame. Obviously, he's done really well thus far in the preseason. I'm sure everyone's seen that. And then you talked about with Reeves still there, Cam Reddish. You got a couple guys, Uchimara coming off that will probably slide into that starting role too. And so they have some really nice pieces. They've always needed the shooting. The question mark still for me with the Lakers is that point guard. I'm not a D'Lo guy, and I don't know that I'll ever be a D'Lo guy. Yeah, when D'Lo's cooking, like he looks like he's really great, but the problem is he only cooks like one out of every six
Yeah.
games. And
Yep.
so and then when he's cooking, it's usually when things are going well for the Lakers and they don't usually need him to cook. And so it's like, okay, sweet, everybody's scoring, including D'Lo tonight. I would love
Yeah.
him to go and get a guy, just a distributor that can kind of share the love, get downhill, get into gaps and all that stuff. But I don't know. We'll see what they do. Where do you land on old D'Lo?
Yeah, I mean, I like to watch him play just because I think he's and this is maybe considered a bad thing at times, but he's just so methodical. His game is so slow. He can slow it down, he can speed it up. However, I totally agree with you that you talk about only being there for 1 out of 6 games. I thought you were talking about Anthony Davis first, but he's there every third game probably.
He
Um,
gonna stay healthy.
yeah, I'm probably pretty in the middle about D'Lo. I mean, I agree. You talk about a distributor. Let's bring in Monte Morris.
There you
He's
go.
a distributor who doesn't have to score, doesn't turn the ball over. Maybe getting downhill is a little bit um, of an exaggeration for him, but that's somebody who, man, you got LeBron, you got Dalton Connect, you got Austin Reeves, you got Anthony Davis there. Just get him the ball. You don't have to score.
They do have Gabe Vincent, which I forgot. I know he had some
Yeah, yeah, he was
injuries and
out all
stuff
year
like
last
that.
year, I think.
Yeah.
Yep,
And so
and
he he
he was good.
he's a nice player. I do like him
Yep.
too. I mean, he can shoot it too.
Hmm.
Um, looks like they're paying him 11 million, so they got to get him back, get him healthy, because he's a player that he can do some of that stuff too and play a nice role. So I don't know. It'll be
Yeah.
interesting. Lakers are always the Lakers, and so it'll always be
Hmm.
fun to see kind of what's going on, what shakes out of what will be a super competitive West. Um, so yeah, other than that, what any big takeaways or things that you're excited about the NBA season that we have not touched on yet?
Man, just overall having, we talked about it right before it's officially basketball season. Just kind of listing them off. I'm excited to watch Thunder. I'm excited to see how the Trailblazers do. Excited to watch all the Iowans that are in the league and the ones that we just claim. Um, and also, I've been, I guess my son is a huge Anthony Edwards fan. So I've been following him and the Timberwolves a lot closer than I usually have. And the fact that they're so close and they're going to be so good, that is, I mean, that's exciting. that's exciting for me and my family and uh, all of the NBA fans in Iowa.
Right, there you go. No, I mean, I'm just excited about that opportunity to get games going. It's always,
Uh,
NBA always starts first, and it's always kind of the kickoff to it. I remember as a pretty young kid. I mean, maybe pushing close to middle school, but I remember, Halloween, like trick-or-treating night, like staying in and wanting to watch the NBA game for as long as I could. And so it's just like a lot of those memories that come back when the NBA starts up, and all the things that come with it. There's an excitement around it. There's an excitement around the unknown and not knowing what's going on. We had a couple years in there where it was, game one or game two, and it was kind of a foregone conclusion that it was going to be the Warriors and the Cavs again. And so it's like we've moved past that. And yeah, sure feels like maybe the Celtics again, but they got a lot to work through too, and a tough East. We have no clue in the West, and so it's going to be a lot of fun. We got some guys, local ties that are making contributions, and so it should be a great way to get things going. A great kickoff to basketball. I'm excited. Let's kick off the NBA. Let's get things going. Basketball season practices started, both at the youth level. My kids have not quite got going yet. I know some have at the youth level. Practices started. College practices obviously up and going. High school will be here before you know it. Basketball season, Adam, is officially going. So let's get out there and let's shoot that rock a little bit.
yeah, it is the best time of the year.